NVIDIA, when they launched the GTX 980 and 970, talked about a feature called MFAA, Mother Effin' AA, or otherwise what is actually known as multi-frame sampled anti-aliasing. Now, what was interesting about it is at the Editor's Day, where they're talking about it and teaching us all about this technology, they spent a healthy portion of time on MFAA, right? They talked about how it worked and how its visual quality would be close to 4x MSAA.
And how it would work on everything?
But its performance penalty would be close to 2x MSAA, and that it was going to be a very compatible thing because it was actually done kind of in post, right?
So it should just work on everything.
It should. Well, so they obviously had issues with it because when the cards launched in September, MFAA was not in the driver.
Yep.
And it wasn't until this week that we got MFAA driver at all enabled, right? So this was 344.75, which is now publicly available. It was the driver they released for Dragon Age Inquisition and Far Cry 4 performance stuff. So we've talked about before, the idea of MFAA is to dynamically change the sample points on each pixel for anti-aliasing in consecutive frames.
Yep, alternating.
Not alternating, random.
Oh, it is random? I thought
it's pseudo-random.
Huh, because the way they described it kind of sounded like every other frame.
But the thing is, it's kind of programmable as well, so they can change it.
They can do whatever pattern they
want, right?
Yeah.
So it's maybe fudging anti-aliasing.
Well, it's kind of like...
But that's what the MF is.
Yeah. So the idea, right, so, 2x MSAA, multi-sample AA, is that you look at 2 points on a pixel and you determine whether or not it's color 1 or color 2, based on those points. And then the more points you have, the more accurate of a ratio you could make on what shade should it be between those colors, right? So if you go from 2 to 4 points, you improve the anti-aliasing capabilities. But when you do that, you actually are, you are impacting performance. It's not double the cost necessarily, but you're impacting performance. So what they decided to do was what we have seen other companies do, and even NVIDIA in the past, and some kind of temporal AA, is You
mean AMD?
Both companies have done this in the past, but with non-programmable and more supposedly less compatible methods. You take 2 points for frame 1, you take 2 different points for frame 2, you take 2 different points for frame 3, and as you do that, you kind of intelligently blend those results together.
It's like a running temporal average kind of thing,
right? But that's the idea, right? You get this kind of running average of what that pixel should be, and you're going at so many frames per second, so that affects how they have an algorithm that needs to determine how fast are you moving, how fast is the scenery in that pixel changing, how many frames back do we want to even include data from.
So basically they can do a running average quicker than they can do the double the work on each pixel.
That's the idea. That's the idea. Right. Now, so when they talked to us about it at first, they were showing a static scene.
Yep.
And the discussion after the fact was, well, in a perfectly static scene, then you will essentially have identical quality to 4x MSAA, but at the performance of 2x MSAA.
Okay.
As you move across the screen, you both affect the performance capability of it and the image quality of it.
Right.
But you will never go below the image quality of 2x MSAA or the performance of 2x MSAA.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds reasonable, and it actually worked fairly well in our testing. The problem is that it's limited today to 20 games, right? Assassin's Creed Unity and Black Flag, Battlefield 4, there's a list on the website you can see here, games like Dirt 3, some of the older ones, Dirt Showdown. But you got Crysis 3 in there. You got Just Cause 2. That's an old one. You got Titanfall. And there's other games in here missing, like the Call of Duty games, or I don't know, like Far Cry 4.
It's just weird that it's a whitelist instead of just
So it's a whitelist. So when you go into the control panel to enable it, it's just another line item in NVIDIA's increasingly growing complicated control panel for multi-frame sampled AA. And you turn it on, and then it's silent after that. If it detects a game where you can use it, it will enable it. And you
have no way of knowing if it did it or not.
You have no way of knowing if you're doing it.
That's kind of
right. Yeah. But the idea is so once you have MFAA on, you go into like Crysis 3, and instead of turning on 4x MSAA, you turn on 2x MSAA in the game.
Oh.
And when you enable 2x MSAA, it's actually doing 4x MFAA because the control panel is
So
doing it.
if it can do it,
Right.
it will do it.
Correct.
But you have to set it to 2x.
You don't have to. If you set it to 4x, then you're going to do 8x MFAA, which will give you
really?
essentially the quality, close to the quality of 8x MSAA, but for the performance of 4x.
Huh.
So
I didn't
it'll
know
work
that there
that way.
was-
It doubles it up.
Yeah, I didn't even
either
know there was an
direction you go.
8x.
Yep.
Huh.
And so when it does work, it's seamless to the game. The game has no idea what's happening. NVIDIA is kind of programmatically in RAM changing where those sample points are, and it's doing the blending in RAM because it's kind of interesting, right? Like if you use Fraps or an in-game screenshot tool, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you get the pre.
You get the pre-blended
AA'd.
version of that frame. You would
Yeah.
see 2x MSAA essentially,
Okay.
right? So we had to use our like frame rating capture system we use it to
grab,
record
basically.
video anyway for
Yeah.
our performance testing, and we just took screen grabs from that raw uncompressed video to show the differences here. So if we look at some of these image quality comparisons, for example, let's go to this one first. I think this one's the best. So on the left, you have 2x MSAA, in the middle, 4x MSAA, and then 4x MFAA on the right. So
Just
consider that as you
scroll over a
look.
little.
So you can see here, 2x versus 4x. You can clearly see a difference in these lines. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
2x versus 4x, you can clearly see a difference between those two, the left and the center screenshot.
Yeah.
But when you look here, right, this is 4x MFAA versus 4x MSAA,
And you're
they're pretty
standing.
close.
You're standing still there, so it was able to.
No, you're moving.
Oh, but not quickly, right?
I mean, it depends on your definition. I would say not quickly.
Because it needs to see
Here.
it for at least 2 frames. Mm-hmm. You know, for it to have.
Yeah,
an
but I mean,
effect,
again,
right?
if you're running at 50 frames per second,
Yeah, it's pretty
and
quickly.
it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
This is one from what is this one from? Grid 2. Again, 2x MSAA, 4x MSAA, 4x MFAA on the far right. And I'll scroll up here. And if you pay attention to like these crossbar support beams, 2x versus 4x, clearly a good difference there. And you take 4x MFAA versus 4x MSAA there. Again, they're pretty close. It might be hard to tell on the stream, and obviously listening to the audio version, it's impossible to tell. So go check out those screenshots. And then there's like this one here is probably the worst case scenario. Not the worst case, but is not as good a result, right? You got 2x MSAA, and kind of pay attention to the line along the top of this drainage pipe that we're walking across there. And you can see the difference, the improvement to 4x. But if you look at 4x MSAA, it's actually closer to 2x MSAA quality than 4x MSAA quality. So
what did the performance actually, like, did it actually perform at 2x? Or
it's better. It's close, right? So if you look at grid 2, you know, there's not a huge difference here to begin with between the green line being 4x MSAA, the black line being 2x MSAA, and the
almost
orange
like,
line, new one.
It's almost like you don't even have to worry about
But
it.
it's there. In some games, you don't, right?
Yeah.
Like especially if you're running over 90 frames per second or whatever. But like Battlefield 4, you're looking at the difference between 3 versus 60, and with MFAA, you're getting closer to that 60 than you are to the 50.
Yeah.
And then Crysis 3, it's the best case.
It's actually very.
But you
true.
saw the quality.
You have the worst.
It was the
Quality,
best case,
best
but
quality.
the worst quality.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a worthwhile feature to enable, because the worst case you're going to have is what I would do if I were an NVIDIA, if I had a 970 or 980, because keep in mind that's all it works on.
Yeah.
I would just turn on MFAA and then set my settings normally, right? If
To 2x or
well,
something.
to whatever, right? Like if you're comfortable with the performance at 4x AA, then you're going to get potentially better image quality.
Yeah.
But if you're not comfortable with that 4x AA performance and you happen to scale it down to 2 and you get better quality and better performance, then great. But for the majority of games out there, obviously it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So they haven't really said why. They basically are I think the real truth is that they are finding in particular games where the alternation, the kind of random, pseudo-random alternating point sample
AKA
point pattern.
stochastic. Like,
Yeah. Like
Ooh.
it's
You think it results in flicker
I
or
think
something?
you're seeing shimmering or flickering or
Oh.
some kind of visual distortion that maybe they didn't see at first, but now they're starting to pick up on.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of going through games one at a time to figure out which ones have those and which ones don't.
Yeah.
Which
And I don't mean this as a
sucks.
dig, but it's nice to see that they didn't enable it by default. There was another feature that came out a few years ago that was enabled by default. And again, I don't mean it as a dig. It's just nice that they didn't.
Yeah. Which one are you talking about? Go ahead, say it.
Tessellation. When AMD first put out the Catalyst with the Tessellation enabled, it was enabled by default. And a lot of people never realized that, which is why they were complaining that they were getting a lot worse performance than they thought they would.
Yeah.
So it is good that they disabled it, and now they're sort of saying, oh, if you're running this app, then enable it. Otherwise, don't. They're up to 20 games now?
They're at 20. They're at 20 games here. And they're not even like the 20 most modern games, right? So
Dirt 3.
Dirt 3, F1
Dirt
2013.
3, everybody's got a copy of
Far
Dirt
Cry 3 is on here, not Far Cry 4.
How about Far Cry 2?
Just Cause 2. Saints Row the 4. That's fairly new. I guess that's like what, a year and a half ago or something like that. Splinter Cell Black. Whatever. It is what it is. They know that they need to improve it. I think they made a huge deal about MFAA, and I have this kind of sinking feeling that what's going to happen is this is going to be another one of those features that's kind of like, hey, remember when they did that?
Yeah, it just sounds like
type of thing.
It just sounds like there's a lot of overhead with them trying to keep it implemented or implement it. Like if you have to have a whitelist like that and be testing,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.